Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Menachos Daf Vav. We begin 10 lines off the top of the Amud, right in the middle of a discussion, which is based on a pasuk. So actually it's a brisa which quotes a pasuk, Min habakar lohitzis atreifa, which tells us that an animal which is deemed a treifa because of an internal wound, it's not slated to live too long. It's not suitable for a karban. And the question was, why a pasuk? Why can't we just arrive at this conclusion from a simple kal v'chomer? As follows: if even a ba'al mum, an animal which has a blemish which is perfectly okay for a regular person to consume, nothing wrong with eating a ba'al mum. Nevertheless, it's asur as a karban, right? It's possible as a karban. Certainly a treifa, which is asur, which is forbidden for the ordinary person to consume as well. Certainly, wouldn't you think it's asur to offer it as a karban on the mizbeach? So why can't that piece of logic suffice to serve as basis to disqualify a treifa for a karban? Why is a pasuk needed for it? So we launched our discussion yesterday, and we went back and forth, and today we're going to pick up right in the middle here. El Omar of Ashi. Let me explain to you why that kal v'chomer logic would not suffice, and why a pasuk in fact is needed to teach us that a treifa is disqualified from being a karban. El Omar of Ashi, because you can argue, you can propose a refutation, you can negate that kal v'chomer. Let's go back to the initial step, the initial, kal v'chomer. And it can be refuted, right? Nip it at the bud. Why? You're deriving this conclusion based on balmum. Right? The balmum is mutter for a hedyot, for an ordinary person, and it's asur l'gavaya. Certainly a treifa which is asur l'hedyot is asur l'gavaya. Well, there's a big difference between treifa and balmum. Mal balmum, a balmum has a stringency that treifa doesn't have. You see, a balmum can disqualify, number one, the actual item that's being offered, namely the karban itself, the karev, as the Gemara will call it, the karev, the item that's being offered, and also it's a factor at play regarding the makriv as well, regarding the kain. If he's a balmum, he can't be involved in offering a karban. So the concept of balmum, the balmum issue is an expansive, a broad type of thing. It affects all around the karban, the person, something which treifa doesn't have. Because treifa is only an issue regarding the animal itself, but the kain, even if he's in a state of treifa, he has a internal illness, serious wound, he's still okay to bring a karban. So perhaps you can't build one on the other. You can't derive treifa from a balmum. Mala balmum shkein also by makriven kikraven. The makriv, the kain, is also affected by the mum, just as the karban itself, as opposed to treifa, which doesn't have that expansiveness. Amalei Rav Acha Saba, he told the Rav Ashi, he says, what do you mean? You can't necessarily use that as a factor, because let's take a look at one that was born by cesarean. That could undo your refutation, because that will disprove your point. Because on the one hand, it's not expansive, it's not broad. The issue of yetzidofen is only pertaining to the karban itself. If the animal is a yetzidofen, you can't use it as a karban. But if the kayin who's serving the karban is a yetzidofen himself, it doesn't affect him. And we find that by the yetzidofen as well, a regular person can eat an animal which is a yetzidofen, but cannot offer such an animal as a karban. So you see that although it's not a broad, expansive type of issue, doesn't affect the person offering the karban, only limited to the animal itself. It's mutar l'hedid and asur l'gavaya. So you can't say that by the so certainly we can use that as a basis for disqualifying the treifa as a carbon. Again, we attempted to base it on balmum. We said no, balmum is a broad isser, broader than treifa. Well, yetzedofen is not a very broad isser. It only disqualifies the carbon, not the kayin. And if it's mutter for a hedyot to eat a yetzedofen and usser as a carbon, certainly a treifa which is usser to hedyot should be usser as a carbon, right? So basically, let's shift the kal v'chomer over to the yetzedofen and use that as the basis to disqualify a treifa as a carbon. Well, says the Gemara, no. Yetzedofen, in a way, has a strictness that treifa doesn't have. Mali yetzedofen shken inei kodesh v'b'chayra. Perhaps the reason why yetzedofen is disqualified as a carbon is because if a firstborn kosher animal is born by way of yetzedofen, not the standard way of birth, he's not going to become kaddish as a b'char. The pasuk said it has to be peter rechem, has to come out naturally. So perhaps that's the reason why he's pasal as a carbon, as opposed to treifa, which can become kaddish as a b'char. Right? If the firstborn animal is a treifa, it's still going to be kaddish. So perhaps a treifa should be okay as a carbon as well. On that we can respond and say no, that a balmum will undo this equation, because a balmum can become a b'char, right? If a b'char, firstborn is a balmum, it's going to be kaddish as a b'char, and it's still usher as a carbon. Certainly the same would be by a treifa. Well, mala balmum shken usher by makribin kekravin. Now that takes us back to the previous moment here, where we pointed out that the balmum is a broader issue. It affects the kohen as well, so maybe that's why it's usher as a carbon as opposed to a treifa. Well, that can be undone by looking at the yetzedofen, which doesn't have that expansiveness, and still a pasal as a carbon. And we're going to sort of ping pong back and forth. We'll go back and forth here. We can't really pin it down. We can't attribute the psul as carbon for carbon to any specific reason. We can't say it's because of the expansiveness, but it doesn't have that. We can't say it's because it affects the b'chara status. Balmum does not have that. So loy roize, geroize, v'loy roize, geroize. The elements found in one is not found in the other, and vice versa. So you can't necessarily sort of blame or attribute the psul as a carbon to any single factor here. The only way is to find something common to both. Find a common denominator to balmum and yetzedofen. What's the hatzad hashava shebehen? What's the one thing in common to both? Shemutarim lehedyot v'asram legavaya. That on the one hand, a regular person can eat them, a balmum, yetzedofen, no problem. But they're pasal as a carbon, and certainly a treifa. Likewise a treifa. Koshken treifa. She'asur lehedyot te'asur legavaya, which is also for a regular person to eat, certainly as a carbon. So back to the old question, why is a pasuk needed to disqualify a treifa? We have a simple kal v'chomer, or a complicated kal v'chomer. Well, so they want to tell you why. Because there's something unique to these two sources, these two phenomena, balmum and the yetzedofen. There are no exceptions to their rules. As opposed to treifa, which has exceptions. For instance, as we're going to see, by a bird, which has malika, which is really a form of treifa, because, as Rashi explains, he first cuts through the spinal cord, the backbone of the bird, which renders it a treifa. So in effect, it's like a dead bird. It's a treifa, and still it can be offered as a carbon, eaten by the kaihanim. So the treifa concept has room for exception regarding mizbeach. So perhaps he's different, and perhaps we can't come down so hard on the treifa animal as well. Perhaps he's also kosher as a carbon. What's your point? Where's your exception regarding treifa? Where's the exception to the rule? Where do we find that there's any element of permissibility by treifa? Ilema, perhaps, the fact that you can be makar of a oila bird after doing malika. So is that your point? So since treifa has that exception to it, it allows for huter mechlala, something which balmum doesn't have. Maybe treifa is more lenient and it could be used as a carbon as well. Well, says the Gemara, if that's the case, if the exception you're referring to is with reference to carbon use, guess what? Balmum also has a similar type of exception to it. Balmum nami ba'if is shuri vishturi. Any bird that has a blemish can be used as a carbon. As we learn, Tammuz v'zichrus b'behema. The requirement of Tammuz, unblemishedness, and zichrus, male requirement, is only by an animal carbon, not by a bird carbon. Vein Tammuz v'zachrus ba'ifais. So, just as the treifa world allows for exceptions regarding hakrava, the concept of mum as well has allowances for carbon as well, right? Because a bird with a mum could be used. So that's not a leniency in treifa versus mum. Rather, the exceptional allowance by treifa is regarding a chatas bird that was nimlak, right, which is really a form of treifa. And instead of speaking about offering it as a carbon, let's look at the fact that the Kohanim will consume it, because Kohanim consume the chatas bird. So we see that the Issa Treifa allows for allowances, for exceptions, even not in the context of carbon. Says the Gemara, right, as opposed to balmum and yetzidoif and the other items that we spoke about don't really have this concept of hutar mechlala, exceptions to the rule regarding kehanim's consumption, because a balmum and yetzidoif are never usher for consumption to an ordinary person. Well, says the Gemara, that exceptional case that you're talking about is not really an exception regarding ordinary people, because even when the kehanim eat, it's not their personal food, they're eating off Hashem's table. Kehanim mishulchan gavoya, because they're eating off the higher table of Hashem. So, in effect, your exceptional case regarding treifa again relates back to the hakrava process. So, in the world of carbon, the world of hakrava, yeah, a treifa sometimes is allowed. But guess what? Then he's no longer different than balmum and yetzidoif, because they too allow for exceptions. For instance, if a bird carbon is a balmum or a yetzidoifen, not this, the balmum. A balmum, a bird balmum, is okay for a carbon. So there's no distinction anymore. We were trying to wedge a distinction between treifa and balmum to disallow comparison and connection, right? Because treifa has huter mechlala, has exceptions, it allows for exceptions to the rule, but if it's within the context of akrava, balmum has the same story, because a bird balmum can be used as a carbon. So back to the question, why can't we just simply learn that a treifa animal is puzzle as a carbon based on al kavachaymer from the dual sources, balmum and yetzidoifen together, or common denominator, right? That they're both mutter lahedyet in asur l'gavoya, certainly a treifa which is asur lahedyet, asur l'gavoya. Vela parachachi, rather we can refute the kavachaymer as follows. We're basing it on a commonality between balmum and yetzidoifen. I'll tell you why they're worse than a treifa. You know what's common to both of them? That their their blemishes, are visible and known. Well, a physical blemish is certainly known, and even Yotzei Doifen, says Rashi. He was born by cesarean. It's a known thing. It's an unusual occurrence, unusual phenomenon, and everybody's talking about it. So it's again something which is known and publicized. So maybe that's why they're worse off than the treifa. Tell me about treifa as opposed to a treifa. Shekain ein mum nikar. It's mum. It's internal. It's not obvious and known. Right? You can have something really internal. So we can no longer derive treifa from the other ones, and that's why we need a pasuk. Musham hachi isrucha. That's why we need a pasuk. Min treifa lahoitzis min abakar. I mean lahoitzis treifa to disqualify a treifa. So we went full circle. Right? We started off with the pasuk. Min abakar lahoitzis treifa. Why do we need a pasuk to disqualify treifa as a carbon? We have a kal v'chomer, joint kal v'chomer, commonalities, back and forth. End of the day, we can't really base it on kal v'chomer. And that's why we need a pasuk. Now, one more question. So it's based on which pasuk? The pasuk of Min HaBakar, right? Or treifa machan afka. Really, is that really the source to disqualify a treifa? Didn't we learn it from elsewhere? Pasuk in Yecheskel, we mashki Yisrael. We learn from there. Min HaMutal Yisrael. You can only offer on the mizbeach something which is suitable for a regular yid to eat, as opposed to forbidden materials like a treifa. And guess what? We have yet a third pasuk. Mikol HaShayav Tachas HaShevet Nafka. Prat LaTreifa Sheina Iveres. This is by the Master Behemah, the 10th animal, which is offered as a carbon. Only an animal can walk Tachas HaShevet, under the staff, as opposed to a treifa animal, which is sometimes missing its feet and doesn't have the life force to walk through. So we learn to disqualify a treifa from any type of carbon. So we have three sources for the same thing. Why? Tzrichi, all three are needed. Because each one relates to a different aspect of treifa, a different level of treifa. The imi mashki Yisrael, if only from that pasuk, Havamina would say, Lemutei, only disqualifies material which was completely disqualified from day one, which means to say, it earned its treifa status while still unborn. So never had a moment in time of potentiality for carbon. Dumi the orlik la'akerem, which is similar to the items mentioned in that pasuk, but orlik la'akerem, which are forbidden from day one. So perhaps that's so far off the track and asur. But let's say the treifa status arrived only after birth. It had a moment in time that could be used as a carbon. Maybe it's not so terrible. And with this kasha, perhaps it can be used as from mizbeach even now, because Rachmanu kol shayavar comes the next pasuk. Even in this case, a treifa is disqualified. Furthermore, the pasuk only writes kol shayavar. Havamina would say lemute hecha dinitrefa ulbasav yikdisha. It only addresses an animal which turned a treifa, and then he made it into a carbon. Dumi the maser, which is similar to the maser behema phenomena, which discusses a treifa which is now being made into a carbon. So that doesn't work. Suppose he designated the animal as a carbon, and then it turned into a treifa. Where it was fit, it was suitable when he made it hegdish. Perhaps it retains that status. Perhaps it's kosher. Kosher Rachmana min Abaka comes the next pasuk and says, no, this too is disqualified tzrichi, and that explains why all three psukim are needed. So continues the Gemara. So back to Mencha, which requires Kmitza as the first step in the Akrava process. So who did the scoop? So again, either we're talking about a regular Mencha or even a Minchas Choyte. Why single out Minchas Choyte? Will be discussed in the Gemara. So either the sinner's Mincha or regular Mincha, whose Kmitza was executed by an unqualified individual, Shakamtzan, Zor, a regular person, a Yisrael, not a Kohen. Oinin, or a Kohen who had just experienced a family death. Tvul Yaim, a Kohen who is not fully Tahar. He had immersed in a mikveh, but is awaiting sunset, Mechusek Purim, or has yet to bring his karbanis to complete his purification process. Mechusek Purim, Mechusar begadim, he's lacking his proper garments. Mechusar kippurim, or he has yet to bring his karbanos. Shelo chatzar yadav raglav, he hasn't rinsed his hands and feet in preparation for the avodah arel. He hadn't experienced a bris milah. Rashi points out that he was a hemophiliac, it was a family issue, so he couldn't do a bris. Tamei, or he's outright tamei, yoshev, or he's in a seated position, oimed, or standing. Al gabel kelim, on some sort of utensil rather than directly on the floor, which is required. Al gabel bemo, standing on an animal. Al gabel chavel, on his friend's foot. Apostle. All these acts of kmitza are apostle. Rashi points out that the sourcings are to be found in the Gemara and Zvachim. A kohen has to be involved, and only a kohen wearing his begadim, rinsed his hands and feet directly on the floor, standing. So we basically equate menachos to zvachim, just like these are requirements by karbanos, by animal karbanos, likewise by menachos. Kamas b'smail pasul, likewise, if he does the kmitza using his left hand instead of his right, it's pasul. However, b'meseiro eimer yachzer, in all these cases, where the kmitza was done inappropriately, he could just restore it, put back the material, drop the kmitza back into the kli, v'yachzer v'yikmoitz b'yamin, and redo the kmitza rightfully with his right hand. Continues the Mishnah. Let's say he takes a scoop and he discovers there's a little pebble inside his scoop, or a grain of salt, or a drop of the levina spice that comes along with a mincha pasul. So it's no good because that little granule of salt is taking up the space where there should be some dough. So he's missing in his kmitza. Because it was said as follows: a kaimitz which is hayasa, which is overflowing, too big, v'achasar, or missing, pasul. Vezu hayasar, what's an example of a bloated kaimitz? Should come to mevuratz, and that he did the kmitza in a manner where the dough is sort of sticking out and protruding from his fingers. What's an example of v'chaser, a lacking kaimitz? Should come to brashis ba'is. If he did it with the tips of his fingers, he didn't do a full scoop, because it needs to be a properly sized kaimitz. Ask the Gemara, lama li lemisna. So back to that first opening line of the Mishnah, where it references minchas choite and an ordinary mincha, that all need to be done properly, with a proper kohen, with proper attire. What's the point of singling out minchas choite among the rest, instead of just a general statement relating to all menachos equally? Why point out first minchas choite and then ve'echad kol menachos? Listen, you could have simply stated kol ha-menachos shekam tzenzar v'aynin, all menachos that were done this way. What's the point of singling out minchas choite? Why would I think it's different? Would I think it's better? Would I think it's less susceptible to psul? Says the Gemara, yeah. Little Reb Shimon Yitzchak, that statement, an extra twist, was to highlight Reb Shimon's shita. It related to Reb Shimon's opinion. The Sani has willing to Nebraska. Amar Reb Shimon, bedinu shetei minchas choite tu neshem l'vaina. Your typical mincha needs oil, needs lavaina. It's an adorned mincha. It's a complex mincha. Minchas choite, as we know, is a very simple, plain mincha. And the question is, why wouldn't you add more? Really, a minchas choite would need shemen and lavaina. Shelo choite niska. We don't want the sinner. It's brought by a sinner. We don't want him to gain on the deal. Why is he getting away with less than a regular mincha? No, so why? So why, indeed, does it not come with shemen and lavaina? Hashem doesn't want his mincha, his offering, to be adorned and pretty. It's meant to atone for a sin. Keep it basic. Furthermore, regarding animal karbanos as well, we find that by a chatas that a person brings on account of eating, let's say, chaylev, he brings no nesachim with the wines, which typically accompany an animal carbon, doesn't come along with a chatas. And the same question is why? Why does it gain on the deal? If anything, it should cost them more. Truthfully, the chatas of a sinner, we call it chatas chelav. Rashi says it's most common. So we call it chatas chelav. Really, it should need nesachim. Says the Gemara in Amud Beis. Why would it need? For the same reason. We don't want the sinner to gain on a deal. Why is he getting away with a lesser? So why? Why then? For the same reason. We don't want his carbon to be pretty. So this is Reb Shimon explaining, as he does many times. Reb Shimon Dorish Talmud Dekroi explains the reasoning behind halachas. So based on this, perhaps I would think, once Reb Shimon tells us that when it comes to a sinner's offering, it's meant to be plain, basic, simple. Likewise, suppose the kmitza was done in a less than ideal fashion. If the kmitza was executed by an unqualified person, like a zar, like a kohen who's tummy, nami, perhaps there too, tis kasher, it should be okay, because the simpler the better, the more basic the better. Kamash, one comes to Mishnah and says, no, not so far. Okay, without oil, fine. Without levina, yeah, but it has to be done properly, with a proper kohen. So that's the point of referring to Menachos Chayte separately, to point out, even according to Reb Shimon, who typically explains to us that the offerings of a chayt are meant to be simple and basic, bare bones. Nevertheless, a kohen is needed, a proper kohen is needed. If that's the thinking behind this statement, Hasam Nami, listening. So when it comes to animal karbanos as well, why wouldn't the Mishnah present it the same way? It should say echad chatas chelav, v'echad kol azmachim, whether it's a chatas of a sinner or regular karban, and on and on. Shekiblu daman, whose blood was received by an unqualified individual, a zar v'oinen, it's possible. The Mishnah should point out the chatas separately, and we'll give it the same explanation. Velema will explain that in fact, Reb Shimon it's needed for Reb Shimon, that although the chatas is a bare bones korban, but it still has to be executed by a qualified person. So why didn't the Mishnah in Maseches Zvachim structure it this way? Apparently, keeping the tunnel a kol, because since the Mishnah begins with the word kol, kol is inclusive, covers everything. Like tanichutz, without making exceptions, just as kol without exceptions. Kulu mashmu, by default, it includes every carbon. There's no need to point out this or that carbon. So automatically include hachanabi. Well, the same can be argued by the Mishnah Menachos, by us. Given the Tana kol v'tanichutz, once it says the word kol, which is inclusive, without making exceptions, kulu mashmu automatically includes everything. So back to the question, why does the Mishnah have to point it out separately? Says the Gemara, Istrich, I'll tell you why it's needed. Saga Techmin, perhaps I would think as follows. Once we establish that the first Mishnah back on that base is not going like Reb Shimon as we discussed there. Sefer Nami, like Reb Shimon. I would think that perhaps the Mishnah by us follows the same thread. It's not going like Reb Shimon. Okay, and if that's the case, how would I know Reb Shimon's opinion in this regard? Maybe according to Reb Shimon, who says that mincha v'chayte is bare bones, perhaps it's okay even if anybody took care of it, even a zar. Kamashman comes back to the Mishnah and says, no, don't you think that for a second. Even according to Reb Shimon, if the kmitza was done by a zar, an oinen v'chulu, it's possible. Amara. So let's say a zar did kmitza. Can he put the kmitza back into the mix and have the kohen redo it? Amarav zar shekamas, yeah, Yachzer can put it back. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean? We discussed this in our Mishnah. It's a machlekes. Only Ben Beseira allows it. Chum did not allow redo. Vanan pasal tanan. Now Mishnah it says pasal, he disqualifies the mincha. You can't redo it. My pasal. Pasal just means pasal sheyachzer. It's pasal until it's redone, until he puts it back. Well, if that's the case, then Rav is simply quoting from Meseirah Shita. So it sounds like Rav is presenting a consensus view, but now Mishnah, it seems like it's a machlokes. Says the Gemara, we have to re-explain the Mishnah. The machlokes pertains only to a specific case. Rav is talking about a different case. If the kaimetz is still around in its fullness and it can be restored, returned and redone, all agree. Even the Rabbanan would agree to Ben Beseira, you can redo it. No harm was done. And that's Rav's case. The dispute in the Mishnah only pertains to a case where you can't really redo it, the chas or kaimetz. He did the kmitza unlawfully and something went missing, a little of the kaimetz went missing and he can't really put it back and start over. There's something missing there. So the question is, can he now refill the mincha and start again? Rabbanan Sabri, Rabbanan hold too late. If he lost some of the material, it's over. You can't redo it. You can't bring more material from your house, refill the mincha, and then start over again. It's too late because the mincha, the way you had it, was destroyed. But Meseirah Savar, he holds no. It's as though nothing happened. Just bring more material, fill it up again, and start from fresh. Says the Gemara, if that's the way you understand the Mishnah, that all agree, if it can be easily redone, like putting back what you took and start again, it works. Machlokes is only when something went missing, you have to go restore some of the material. If that's the case, then b'meseira omer yachzer v'yachzer v'yikmait b'yimin. Why does b'meseira simply say yachzer, put it back, and do another kmitza with his right hand? He has to refill the material. B'meseira omer, rather, b'meseira should say yachzer, put back the kmitza, go back home and get some more material, and refill, and then start over again. That's how he should word his opinion. You're right, says the Gemara. You're right. But the machlokes in the Mishnah is clearly in a case where he can easily restart by just putting back the kaimetz and restarting fresh. There's nothing missing. The Meseirah says you can redo it. Chacham say no. Once the kmitza was done in a possible fashion, it's too late. You're right. Rav was simply relating to B'Meseirah's Shita, because Rabban, of course, disagree. They hold that once the kmitza was done, even by a zar or with his left, you can't redo it. Well, then if that's the case, Pshita, then he's simply restating B'Meseirah's Shita. What's the point of Rav teaching us this halakha? It's simply the Mishnah. The answer is, Rav is elaborating. He's giving us a deeper understanding in Ben Meseirah. Perhaps I would think, Ad kan like a machshav Meseirah, El B'Smal. Perhaps Meseirah only allows us redo in one case, when the kmitza was done with the kohen's left hand instead of his right. That's not so terrible. It can be redone. Aval b'shar psul noy. But perhaps if a zar does it, it nails the mincha, disqualifies it permanently. That cannot be redone. Kamashmon, that's what I would think. Says Rav, no, you should know. Even a zar, as bad as you get, it can be redone. That's the point of Rav. Now, why would I think a zar is worse than the left hand? I mean, they're both pasul and they both could be redone. What's the difference? Ma'ishno smoil. Why would I think that smoil is in a way better and could be redone? So perhaps I can offer a reason for that. Smoil isn't so terrible. We find sometimes that even smoil is allowed as part of the akrava process. We find an element of permissibility regarding left hands on Yom Kippur. At one point in the day, the Kohen Gadol has to use his left hand as well. Well, zar nami ashchala hechsher b'shchita. A zar, a non-Kohen, sometimes is qualified. For instance, when it comes to shchita, a zar can do shchita on a carbon. So he also has an element of permissibility. And we're assuming that shchita is, an integral part of the avodah. So why would I differentiate between a zar and left hand of a kohen? No, shchita la avodah. The fact that a zar can engage in shchita doesn't say anything about the power of a zar, because shchita isn't technically part of the avodah. It's a prelude to the avodah. Lama V'loi, really? V'amar Rav Zera, we find that shchita is a very, very much an integral part of the avodah. V'amar Rav Zera, Rav, shchita is para. Let's take a look at the para aduma. Shchita is para. If it was done bizarre by Azar Psula, Paraduma is possible. Rav himself explained why Elazar b'chukah ksiba, because by Paraduma it says Elazar has to do it. It has to be the kayin, and chukah means it's absolute. Well, Shani Parad the Kotcha b'dekabayisi. The reason why the shchita of Azar by a Paraduma is no good because it's not really a carbon. It's Kotcha b'dekabayis. It's a possession of the Beis Hamikdash. It's Rashi says it's not because of avoida element. It's not avoida there. It's a gzeres hakasa. It's the required process. V'lav kol dechenu. What do you mean? If anything, it's all the more reason to prove our point. It pretty much substantiates our point that shchita is something substantial. If anything, it's the other way around. You're telling me that a kohen is required to do shchita on even kotcha b'dekabayis. Certainly, kotcha mizbech le'bo kuna. Wouldn't you think that the shchita of a kotcha mizbech of a regular carbon, of course, it requires a kohen, right? Which means to say that, if anything, if it's considered avoida by kotcha b'dekabayis, certainly by kotcha mizbech, and still, if a Yisrael is mutter to do, is allowed to do shchita on a regular carbon, doesn't that say something about the power of a zar? That there's an element of permissibility, an element of access to a zar, even by avoida. So he's no different than Smoil, which has an element of permissibility in Kippur. Amar Shisha ben Ravidi, no. Certainly, shchita is not labeled avoida. Doesn't qualify as an act of avodah. The reason why you need a kohen to engage in the shchita of the paraduma is not because it's an avodah. It's not reflective in any way on the avodah properties of the shchita. Shchita is not an avodah. Rather, midah dahava maris negoim. It's part of the process. It's a procedural thing. Sometimes we find that the Torah requires a kohen's involvement, even when it's not carbon, but it's not avodah. Like taking a look at a nega, inspecting a nega. Nobody's going to argue and say that's avoida. You need a kohen to determine whether the nega is Torah or not, right? Same thing with the shchita of paraduma. Omar Shisha, Beit Ravidi midah dahava maris negoim. Love avoida. All agree it's not avoida. Boikuna requires a kohen. The same with the shchita of paraduma. So again, back to the point that shchita is not really an avoida. And the fact that a zar can do shchita doesn't say anything about his power and his ability to do avodah. As opposed to smoil, left hand, we find on Yom Kippur, when the kohen carries in the utensils, right, to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the keteris, the spoon, one on the right, one on the left. So that's why I would think that perhaps when it comes to doing a kmitza b'smoil, but Meseira allows it to be redone, because smoil, as bad as it isn't so terrible. It isn't as terrible as a zar. Therefore comes Rav and says, no, even by a zar who did the kmitza can be redone. Well, says the Gemara, I can figure that out on my own. Once again, why? I could look at the bama, the public altar, right? When there was no Mishkan, no Beis Hamikdash, they had these bamas, where we find that even a zar can engage in avodah, as we learned back in Maseches Zvachim. So once again, we find that even a zar has access to karbanos. Perhaps you can argue and say that a bama is not any indication because as Rashi points out, the bama was something that was around before the kohen was designated as the kohen for avodah. So in any case, a bama is a different setting, a bama is a different context, and you can't really learn from there, right? And Tosfos points out even after the choosing of Aaron HaKohen, still we had bamas later on, right, during Noiv and Givon. But in any case, it's a different context, different setting, different setup. Perhaps you can't learn anything from the bama to the Beis Hamikdash. Perhaps you'll say you can't learn from the bama. But we do. Vatani, we have a brayso. So it's talking about cases where carbon material was taken on the mizbeach, material which is possible, but it was placed on the mizbeach. The law is, once it's up there, you don't take it off. By the time we have a brisa, it goes down the list of various, deficiencies. Menayin liyoytze, what about carbon material which was taken out of the confines of the Beis HaMikdash? It became possible. Nevertheless, shemal loyered, once it's on the mizbeach, it doesn't come off. Because yoytze, as bad as it is, there's an element of permissibility to it. Shara yoytze kasha b'bama, because by a bama there's no problem of yoytze. There are no confines, no mechitzes, no boundaries. So since we find that yoytze is not an issue by a bama, no. Even in the Beis HaMikdash, where it is an issue, but once it's on the mizbech, leave it up there. So clearly we're comparing and we're sourcing from the bama. Why can't we do the same with the zar? The answer is, it's not really a proper source. Tana, the Tana of the Bryce is really basing himself on a pasuk. Azois Torah Sa'ila Kasamachle, he's relying on the pasuk. Zois Torah Sa'ila, anything which is up in the mizbech stays up there. And this rationale, this comparison to the bama is just sort of an added element of explanation. But to actually use the bama as the primary source, that doesn't work. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so Ela Taima, the Ashmina Rav. So it's only because of Rav's presentation that we know that according to Ben Meseira, just as when the kohen does the kmitza with his left hand, he can restore it and redo it. Likewise, if a apostle like a zar does the kmitza, it can be redone. Ela Taima the Ashmina Rav. Because otherwise, without Rav teaching us this, Havamina would think B'shar Psulan Pasal Ben Meseira. The Ben Meseira would not allow a redo regarding other psulim. Really? Vatani, you have a brisa that clearly there's no difference. It's all based on the same pasuk. When the kmitza was done improperly, it can be redone. Vatani, Rav Yesi, Rav Yudah, and also Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon, they both tell us, Machshir, Hayu Ben Meseira, Chalab Psulim Kulam. Just as Ben Meseira allows you to redo the left-handed kmitza, same thing with other psulim. But Tanya, we have a brisa to support it. The pasuk says, "V'kamatz misham." He does kmitza misham from there. What does that mean? Anywhere in the azara, even with the, in the back of the azara, with the front. With the Yisraelim stand, not very close to the mizbeach. Even with the place with the zar, with the Yisraelim stand, you can do kmitza there too, as long as you're in the azara. The Meseira Omer, Menayin, he has a different halacha that he learns from B'kamas Misham. You can redo it if it was done improperly the first time. B'kamas Misham, you can do kmitza from the same place that it was already done. Menayin Shem Kamas B'smal She'achzer. What if he did the kmitza with his left hand instead of his right hand? You can put it right back. And redo it with his right hand. V'kamas Misham, do the kmitza from right there. The same place that the kmitza was already done from. So if that's the source, the Torah doesn't differentiate between whether the problem is because it was left-handed or whether it was a Yisrael or the Chivan, the cross, stomach, siba. Once the pasuk states it as a blanket fact. Mali Smoilu, Mali Shar Psulim. What's the difference whether the issue is left-handed or other psulim? So even without Rav's statement, I already know this. So what's Rav's point? Ella rather Hakamashmon Rav is teaching us as follows. Kamatz, not only if the kmitza was done improperly, vafilu kiddush, even if you went to the next step and you took the kmitza material and put it into a klishares to sanctify it, you would think it's too far down the road. It's too far advanced in the process. You can't redo it. The answer is you could. As opposed to the following opinions who say it's too late. The Sanya, we have a brisa, Rabbi Yosi, Ben Yasan, and also Rabbi Yudah Hanachtem Aru. They both concur that when you're too far advanced, you can't redo it. But when does Ben Meseira allow a redo? Shekamas like Kiddush, when all that was done is kmitza without Kiddush. Aval Kiddush. But once he was Makadosh, the Kaimitz Pasal, show's over. So Rav is coming to undo this opinion. But there was another version of this Gemara. Kamatz in Kiddush Loi. Just the opposite. Rav came to point out that a redo only works when you're only at the kmitz, but kiddush, but once you did kiddush, it's too late. Exactly like these opinions. Like these opinions in the Brisa. Kaman Kani Tanoi, in line with these two opinions, as opposed to the Tanakama, the other opinion in that Brisa, who allows it to be redone even once it got to the kiddush state. No, Rav disagrees and concurs with the other opinions. And we'll leave it here. We'll continue tomorrow further on this discussion. In any case, at this point we have a discussion regarding treifa. It's possible as a carbon based on 3 psukim. Whether it's hoysel l'shas hakoyser or lo hoysel l'shas hakoyser, whether it was nidrefa and then became hegdish, or just the opposite, and that's what we learned from all the psukim. We learned that all menachos, even a menachos chayte, even according to Shimon, whose kmitza was done improperly, whether using the kohen's left hand or not a kohen at all, is possible. According to Ben Masero, can be redone. And as Rashi points out in the Mishnah, and as the Gemara concludes, this pertains to any problem with the kmitza, whether left hand or whether azar. What if it was taken to the next step and kiddush was accomplished? Can that be redone according to Ben Masero? On that way, Machlek is Tanoi. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha.